Shalom, it's the 24th of July, and I just want to continue on my discussion yesterday. My battery went flat, so I lost some of my last thoughts. It was not recorded, so I just want to fill in where I left off. Just to quickly recap my thoughts on yesterday. The book of Hebrews is a typical Hebraic writing from someone who's been trained in studying the Torah and also trained in the teaching methods and the writing methods of the Hebrew culture. Now I call it Hebrew culture because I don't want to emphasize it's Jewish this, Jewish that, because Judaism is a religion that sits opposite, or not opposite, it's different to being Hebrew. Just like Christianity is different to being Hebrew, Judaism is different to being Hebrew. And our quest in this life is to cleanse our faith, to cleanse our religion. Now we've touched on that when I did the study on James. What is the pure religion? It's to go back to the origin, to the original. Where did it all start? Well, we know creation started with Abraham, and there's some storylines there. And then there was Noah and the destruction. Adam and the creation. Then the storylines through to Noah and the cleansing and destruction of the earth. Judgment. So that's a cycle on its own. And I think that is linked to why the earth existed in a state where everything was dark and void and covered with water. I think there were a couple of those cycles there. And from Abraham, that's where our journey starts. Our faith journey starts. The concept of the covenant was laid in Genesis 15. And that concept of the covenant was made with one man and then with his firstborn who carried the birthright, Isaac and Jacob. And then Jacob's name was changed to Israel, where the covenant then multiplied to the level of a nation. So it's like reaching more people, but people from within. But within Israel, they were also called the priesthood of nations. So their function was to go out into the world and let other nations join and be grafted into Israel, the righteous people of Elohim, the straight ones of Elohim. And that's the function of carrying the covenant. And that was done under the leadership of Moses, and later on Joshua, and then later on the judges and the kings, up to the time of Mashiach. And then Yeshua was the point where the covenant multiplied again and extended towards all nations through the means of equipping individuals across the world to be like Moses, just like Moses' anointing was placed upon the 70 elders. In the same way, Yeshua's anointing is now placed upon millions and millions of people over the last 2,000 years. And that is where the net is fully cast out. And that is in line with the prophecy of gathering in the nations, which Hebrews touch on as well. It talks, I think it's Psalm 2 or Psalm 45, either one of those, talk about the king that is appointed through a decree so that he will have the inheritance of the nations and their lands. So that means that the kingdom, from the point of the king being appointed, the nations will be included. Now you can say, yes, there was a work done through the first coming of Mashiach, but that was Mashiach ben Yosef, the suffering servant. Now the king is the beloved king, Mashiach ben David, and that only happened at the second coming. So his kingship role is only picked up or taken up at the time of his second coming, the collecting of the bride, and after the judgment. So he will first come as judge and then as king. He was the suffering servant, then he will be the judge, then he will be the king. So future tense. It has not happened yet. He is not the judge at this moment in time. He is not the king at this moment in time. Many people say, oh, you can't say that because he's proclaimed as being the King of Kings. Yes, he is, but that's in the future tense. Outside of this realm, all those things exist currently, and he is the king, but he's the king in the spiritual. But he will be the king who will have a kingdom in the new heavens and the new earth. Now, the language and the terminology basically give us the idea of something that will be made new. Something that's old that will be made new. So we have an old heaven, an old earth. It will become a new heaven, a new earth. What is the timing? After judgment and the appointment of the king. Hebrews 2 and Hebrews 45 talks about the appointment of the king. What is that? Future tense. At that moment in time, he will be the king, and his inheritance will be all the nations and all the lands. He hasn't taken back his kingdom yet. Why did I say that? Because in Revelation, the kingdom of Babylon needs to be destroyed first before he will establish his kingdom. Babylon is still alive and kicking. We are still entrapped within Babylon. Just like Israel was entrapped within Egypt, we are entrapped within Babylon. Same pattern, different bondage. Now this Babylonian system exists throughout all the earth. It's a world system. And that world system is governed and controlled by the anti-Mashiach, the one in the place of Mashiach, also known as the Antichrist. And the real Messiah, Yeshua ben David, the King of Kings, will come and judge Babylon, destroy Babylon, and establish his kingdom at that point in time. Now the terminology of new heavens, new earth coming down, there's also a reference to a new priesthood, a new glorious temple. That's also quoted from the Psalms that Hebrews 1 is based on. And everything is made new, but the concept of the new is future tense. Now Hebrews 12 referred to the new covenant. Hebrews 8, as I said in the introduction, refers to a new priesthood. That's a wrong translation. But Hebrews 12 definitely talk about the new covenant. But that covenant, as I was saying yesterday, which you probably didn't record, is the government system. The covenant is based on the ark, it's based on the tablets, it's based on the manna and the rod of Aaron, it's based on the Levites, it's based on the temple and the tabernacle. The temple and the tabernacle will still exist within Zion. All of those things are within Psalm 2, Psalm 45, Psalm 102 that are quoted in Hebrews 1 and Hebrews 12. So the whole book of Hebrews is based upon those three Psalms and in the context of those three Psalms. So if you don't understand and don't have those three Psalms in the back of your mind, you will misinterpret what the writer was actually trying to say. So all I'm saying is new covenant is future, new king is future, new heavens and new earth is future, new glorious temple is future, new priesthood is future. It's all about the fulfillment or the climax or the ultimate level of what the covenant can be, what the priesthood can be, what the king can be, will reach that final point. But the starting point was Sinai. And Hebrews 12 specifically compares Sinai with Mount Zion. What happened in Mount Sinai? The starting of the covenant given to the nation of Israel through Moshe. But it's the covenant of Abraham that was given to them. Now the covenant or the Mount Zion is the future. It's an old mountain, new mountain. Doesn't make the old mountain bad. No. It doesn't make the tablets and the Ark of the Covenant bad. No, because the glorious temple will still exist in the future. The Ark of the Covenant will still be there. It is the throne of Yahweh, his government system. The king cannot be a king with a kingdom without a government system. And the covenant is the basis of his government system. And it's referred to in Hebrews 12 as an eternal covenant because he's an eternal king. He always has been a king. We just experience him in different phases throughout our time frame of 6,000 years. So I just want to leave you with that. I hope you have a lovely day and a wonderful Shabbat tomorrow. Shalom. Speak to you soon.